Welcome to a new episode of the Guru's Perspective. I would like to say Happy New Year's to everybody out there too. Appreciate the people who come in and chime in, show me love and all the support I have. Right now, I have 55 subscribers. For a person who really starting to get his product and his brand up right now, I really appreciate that. I would definitely like to get more. I've been putting up new promos and new things that me and ebook gonna do for this new year. I'm just really excited about what we have to offer right now. And I would like to say shout out to everybody who been chiming in, my sister Harriet and everybody who listened, Coach V, some of the mainstays and the people who chime in, my nephew Dino, he been giving me some good ideas. We got a really good setup coming for you guys pretty soon when I get that opportunity. And just really excited about what's going to happen this year. I want to start off too and talk about some of the things that happened, recently. I want to catch up on a lot of things, starting off with what happened in college. I want to talk about the quarterfinals. Wasn't too happy with some of the games. It was like that. You kind of figure the first round was more excited than what I thought. Some games were a little shockers and some wasn't, but to see that, it definitely surprised me in some sense. But when I looked at it, I kind of figured most of the stuff was going to shape out the way it did. Was surprised in some of the people who played like some of the games and just really didn't show up. And it was two teams that I would definitely like to discuss. I want to go on right now on the record that I would like to say for the teams that's in right now, congratulations. And I will definitely get to those teams. I want to start off and I want to talk about what happened just recently, of course. And it all started off with, Wednesday, December the 31st. The Miami and number 10 Miami versus number 2 Ohio State, it surprised me. And it seems like Ohio State have a lot of problems when it comes to having those bye weeks. It seems like those don't work out quite well for those guys. But I want to step in and I want to talk about what happened in the game too, because I still feel like Julian Sand had a pretty solid game. He had 287 yards, a touchdown, but the two picks was very costly. But on the other end, Carson Beck played really good. He played exceptionally well. Carson Beck basically was 19 for 26, and he had, a touchdown in that game. And I was just really surprised at how the momentum of the game went to see that Ohio State lost that game. That final score was 24-14. And it was just a really good defensive effort too. What I seen in that game that other people didn't really see was the defense. And I felt like Miami defense really stepped up in that one. Just really appreciate what I saw. And it was a pretty good defensive effort on both ends, but I just feel like Miami had a little bit better, defensive scheme and game plan. No disrespect. Don't want to show or throw any shade at Matt Patricia, but yeah, it just seemed like some of the things that hunted him in the past came back out and showed his ugly face again in that game. And then you had the game that happened with Alabama and Indiana. Number 9 Alabama against number 1 Indiana, and in this case too, it was the number 1 seed was a strong seed, and it wasn't like the 9 seed was going to get an upset in this one. This wasn't the Miami Ohio State game at all. It was just, Fernando Mendoza, laying down his dominance. A lot of people were embarrassed in this game. And then you see players now trying to hit the transfer portal when they don't have their way in these games. But I just feel like Alabama got back into the CFP and they should be thankful. But then and again, the whooping they got, I definitely think a lot of people wasn't too happy about that. And still, throwing shade at Caleb DeBoer, but just give him his opportunity. He basically will possibly lose all of the Nick Saban guys who came in from 2020 and 2023 now. So it's going to be his brand to go when moving forward. It was sad too because what I seen was Ty Simpson got injured in this game and he was out. But at that time they were losing 17-0 at the half. And then you had the kid come in, Austin Mack, who I definitely didn't feel like he was ready. He had 103 yards and they kicked the field goal, but at the same time, it wasn't much going on in this game. Ty Simpson had 17 carries, and then you had the wide receiver who played okay, but Jeremy Bernard didn't do enough. Better yet, the Alabama team as a whole didn't do enough. Fernando Mendoza on the other end, Heisman Trophy winner, had 192 yards on the day, 3 touchdowns. And you had the running back, um, Kalon Black. He had 99 yards on 15 carries in the score. And the receiver, Charlie Becker, had 2 receptions for 51 yards, and he had a touchdown as well. In this game, like I said, I'm not going to dwell or even really talk about it too much because it wasn't even close. That final score was 38-3. Moving on, I want to go to this game. This was like one of the more exciting games that you've seen, the SEC game with Ole Miss and Georgia. Number 6, Ole Miss, definitely played up to the standards right now. You got to give credit where credit is due. Lane Kiffin basically has something going down there. He just felt like he's seen a better opportunity for all the people who feel like he's not loyal. These players hit the transfer portal after a year most times. So, you either looking at him or the players and saying that. But at the same time, in the world today that we're living in, especially the new college and the CFP and how things are going right now, if it don't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And it made sense for him to leave to get better revenue over there in LSU to make the money he was making. On top of that, Ole Miss right now is still doing good. So he's getting a good payday and benefiting off of that as well. The game was really exciting. I definitely felt like from the beginning to the end, Gunnar Stockton played okay. He had 18-31 passing, 203 yards, and a touchdown. But this kid, Trinidad Chamberlain, he was exciting. He was scrambling, making crazy plays. He was doing some Josh Allen type scrambles and throwing the ball and catching wide open receivers. It was actually fun to watch. He had 362 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. The running back, Kawan Lacey, man, he really stepped up. He had 22 carries, 98 yards, and he had 2 scores as well. And their wide receiver, Harrison Wallace III, man, he's a speedster. He had 9 receptions, 156 yards, and a touchdown. On the other end, the running back, Nate Frazier for Georgia, had 15 carries for 86 yards. And the Carrion Branch, wide receiver, had 8 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown for Georgia. It was very close. It was a really good game. It was back and forth. And the crazy thing was when I seen this game, Ole Miss came back and they ended up scoring at the end. And Georgia was trying to get the ball back. They was trying to do like a kick and to get like the game momentum going back their way, but it wasn't a lot of time left. And when they did the kick too, it was a violation, and the penalty on that kick was a safety. So they ended up winning the game 39-34. It was a really crazy game and the way it ended, but at the same time, it was a really exciting game. And that final score was 39-34, and Ole Miss advanced. Last but not least, I want to talk about number 5 Oregon against number 4 Texas Tech. And it's not a lot to talk about, people. Let's just be honest. Texas Tech was the best team in Texas, but for now, I just feel like overall, Oregon was the better team that day. Dante Moore had 234 yards, and he had an interception on the day. But at the same time, you had Jordan Davison. He had 15 carries for 42 yards, and he had 2 scores as well. Surprising to me, too, Barrett Morton. Barrett Morton didn't really do as good as I thought that he would. I thought he would get the big lights and step up and show Texas Tech was a team to be reckoned with moving forward, but he didn't definitely hold up to that expectation. Baron Morton had like 18 for 32 passing, 137 yards, and he had 2 interceptions. The crazy thing is the two interceptions, one of them came for sure in the end zone where they could have scored, and it went back to Oregon. When that happened, I said that might have been, the confidence lift that they needed for Oregon to actually go ahead and move on from this game. And it's really not much for me to explain because it wasn't a lot going on in this game. It wasn't even like it was any momentum in Texas Tech direction. Jacoby Williams, the running back, had 13 carries for 81 yards. And then the wide receiver, too, Terrence Carter Jr., he had 9 receptions for 72 yards. But that's all that happened over there on that end because that final score was 23-0. Oregon blanked Texas Tech. So, yeah, it was two embarrassing games to me that I've seen. The Alabama game on January the 1st when they got beat 38-3 when they were already losing 17-0 at the half. I know Ty Simpson's hurt. They're saying that he's undecided right now with his future. We don't know if he's going to go back to collegiate football or if he's going to the pros. But at the same time, yeah, man, I think he definitely need to go back to the collegiate career because I don't think that after him getting injured that he want to go out like that. And then I feel like they got a lot of good 4 or 5 star recruits that's coming in Alabama. So I would stay put. But yeah, the decision is his right now. And in the Oregon game, I was surprised too because Texas Tech has been playing really good. They've been on another level. They have been the best team in Texas, but it didn't matter in this playoff right here, unfortunately, because they got blanked. And I want to move on now. And I want to talk about some of the things that happened in the NFL too. The last week in the NFL, it was some crazy games that happened too on Saturday, what I've seen. And I want to flip over to that right quick. I feel like it was some poor calls in the Panthers game. They wasn't calling a lot of calls that they supposed to call, and I was looking at that and I said, "Wait a minute! I know that I'm not blind." And the analysts and the reporters on, the channels were saying, "Man, that wasn't the right call, and this was a bad call, and they shouldn't call this. And why did they call this play, but they're not calling that play?" So I said, "Okay, I knew I wasn't going crazy, and I knew I wasn't being biased at this point." But the game was very sloppy, and at the same time, you can't blame this one right here on Tampa Bay for taking advantage of some of those issues. And at the same time, Bryce Young shot himself in the foot too. And I hear a lot of people mumbling now and saying that they don't think that he's the guy over there. And when it mattered the most that he fumbled and didn't do anything and take care of business. But at the same time, you got to give credit to where they were because in this game they stepped up in the end. It was pretty good as far as the defensive matchup with the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then I won't blame a lot of this on Bryce Young. I would like to say Xavier Legette was the one who messed up the play, but at the same time, you shouldn't try to be cute and do things like trick plays when you're in the red zone and just go ahead and just try to score or either take the points. And that was the issue in this game that I feel like the momentum shift in this game. Bryce Young had 266 yards with 2 touchdowns, and he had an interception in the game. And Baker Mayfield had 203 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Wasn't too much of a run game. It's crazy too because Rico Dowdle, all he needed was 7 yards and a touchdown, and he got his bonus from the 7 yards, but he didn't score the touchdown. And he had 7 carries for 10 yards in that game. Yeah, just wanted to lay that out there. Bucky Irvin had 26 carries for 85 yards. He gave them somewhat of a run game, but Cade Otton, the tight end for the Buccaneers, really stepped up in this game. He had 7 receptions, 94 yards, and a touchdown. And Tatiora McMillan looked really sharp with 4 receptions and 85 yards in this game. But that final score was a pretty good play game, and it was raining. The elements definitely had a part to do with this football contest. And that final score was 16-14, and all they had to do was sit up and wait and see how things took place or materialized on Sunday and see how things went down with, the New Orleans Saints and Atlanta Falcons. The second game was really interesting to me, too. It was the Seattle Seahawks versus the 49ers. And if whoever won this game got the number one seed overall in the NFC. Sam Darnold had 198 yards, 20 of 26 in passing. On the other end, Brock Purdy had 127 yards, 19 of 27, and he had a pick. Kenneth Walker III had 16 carries for 97 yards, and Chris McCaffrey, yes, you guys are reading this correctly, had 8 carries for 23 yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, had 6 receptions for 84 yards. And Juwan Jennings had 4 receptions for 35 yards. That final score was the Seattle Seahawks had 13 points and the San Francisco 49ers had 3 points. Yes, they have injuries and a lot of things going on that side of the ball. You don't have Nick Bosa, you don't have Fred Warner, and a couple other guys are missing from that team. But when it came down to it, I think what hurt the San Francisco 49ers the most is Trent Williams wasn't playing as his left tackle position because they got exposed up the middle. I want to move on now, and I want to talk about the Patriots and Dolphins game. It didn't matter what happened; they still got the number 2 seed. At first, the Dolphins was giving them a pretty good matchup, but at the end of the day, that final score, I don't even want to even get into statistics on this one. I don't want to talk about stats in this game. That final score was 38-10. Moving on Sunday, I definitely wanted to talk about this game. I wanted to see what the Detroit Lions was going to do. And I was like, man, I thought that Ben Johnson, knowing the Detroit Lions and what they did week 2, I thought that he was going to get a redemption game and try to put up 50 against us too and try to embarrass the Detroit Lions. But it was another thing coming. It was a 4.5 point favor as far as the Chicago Bears, but it didn't materialize that way. Jared Goff had 331 yards through the air, a touchdown. He had a pick on the day. Caleb Williams on the other end had 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those were last minute drives too. That I believe put the momentum into the Chicago Bears' favor. It definitely shifted because we had them 13 to like 3 at the half, and it was a pretty good comeback effort from the Chicago Bears. But when I seen this game too, what really surprised me was the offensive line for the Detroit Lions held up for the most part. Yeah, Jared Goff got sacked a few times, but they held up for the most part to get the momentum and drive them down the field. They didn't score much in the red zone like I would like, but at the same time, they held the Chicago Bears until it got to like that third going into the fourth quarter. Jameer Gibbs had 19 carries for 80 yards. DeAndre Swift had 10 carries for 40 yards. Amon St. Brown was the guy, who put the team on his shoulders. He had 11 receptions for 139 yards. And then, what I was surprised with was Colston Loveland, his performance. He had 10 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown in this game. It was a really good close contest, but at the end, we got the ball back with like a minute and 39 seconds left. I'm thinking, man, it possibly might go into overtime, but it was a lot of big plays from Amon St. Brown and Jamison Williams that drove them down the field and gave them enough time where it was like 2 seconds left on the clock to kick the field goal. And I mean, what else can I say? Jake Bates has been clutch. He missed one of the field goals in that game, going into the half, but at the same time, when we needed him the most, he pulled out the game. That final score was 19-16. It was a really weird division, where the Vikings swept us and then we swept the Bears. So I thought that was kind of weird, I think the Vikings swept us and the Green Bay Packers. So yeah, was a little rough season, but to go out 9-8 and to go out on 500, I'm just hoping there's a momentum shift. The last time that happened, we ended up winning the division that next year and going to the NFC Conference Championship. So I'm just figuring, man, they got the tools and the things that they need to make this right. So yeah, I'm just looking for a better start, and hopefully them injuries won't be something that'll keep us next year and hurt us because we have more injuries than any other team. And I want to see if I can find that right quick too as well. Yes. In 2024, the Lions led the NFL in games lost due to injury. And in 2025, the Lions were the second in the NFL games lost due to injury. So I'm definitely hoping that we could get that cleaned up. I want to move on, and I want to talk about the Colts versus the Houston Texans game. That was actually a better game than what I thought that it was going to be. Crazy thing is, too, Riley Leonard, he played really good in that game. He had 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I know the Colts was happy with that because now I feel like if they keep Daniel Jones, which I was hearing rumors too, the Vikings probably come knocking. That's just the rumors that I've been hearing rambling around the league. But if Daniel Jones stay, they know that they got a sure bona fide backup in Riley Leonard. That's my opinion because he was actually shredding the defense of the Houston Texans, and that's something that you would never hear me say, especially with a rookie. Yeah, they don't got a lot of tape and stuff on him right now. When the more tape you get, the more you be able to game plan. But to have 270 yards and two touchdowns, man, that was a really good contest. And it went to the wire too, as well. CJ Stroud looked all right, I guess. I don't really feel like he's been tearing it up as of late. He was 14 to 23, 169 yards, and a touchdown on the day. And then, too, one thing that I liked about this, too, seeing this game was Alex Pierce, the wide receiver for the Colts. Man, he looked pretty good. That's definitely a certified number two over there when it comes to Michael Pittman. He's like probably 1A Michael Pittman and 1B possibly Alec Pierce right now. This gentleman had four receptions for 132 yards and two touchdowns, and that was very impressive to me. What I seen too from Xavier Hutchinson, he had five receptions, 84 yards. It wasn't really a lot of guys in this game that were healthy as far as with the wide receivers on the Houston, Texas side as well. It wasn't really too much in the running back category. British Brooks, yeah, that's his name. He had 13 carries for 63 yards. And then you had DJ Giddens. He had eight carries for 30 yards. So yeah, it was like you had second, third string wide receivers in this one right here, wrapping up the season. That final score was 38-30. Really good contest. The Cowboys and the Giants contest was basically Dak Prescott sit out of the game. They knew their season was over. They didn't want to get anybody hurt or expose anybody from being hurt. And the Giants ruined their number one overall draft pick for playing. But that final score was 34-17. The Browns and the Bengals played, and this game was really one that was pretty weird because I know Jamar Chase got upset and said, man, he didn't think that after the end of the game that you could do what you did. It was a part in the game where, of course, Myles Garrett had the 23 sacks, and he's the all-time sack leader now. And they stopped the game to celebrate when the Cincinnati Bengals had the momentum. They was in a hurry-up offense, and they was trying to get the drive to go down the score for the win. And that took away from the game. And I know Jamar Chase was upset about that. Yes, there's things that you do in the game and certain things that you celebrate. But when you're playing a game, even though none of them had nothing to prove because none of them going to the playoffs, but they felt like that was very important, for them to finish strong. And I don't think that he liked that. And I actually will have to agree at this point. Yes, we're celebrating you got 23 sacks and you have the sack leader record. But still, I don't think that should have went on. So yeah, at this point, I respect what was said. I give credit when I would have to say, yeah, at this point, Jamar Chase was right, and it wasn't no moping and complaining. But that final score was 20-18, and the Cleveland Browns won. The game I want to talk about too was the game where you had the New Orleans Saints and you had the Falcons. And when you seen this game right here, this was a game that if the Falcons lost, that of course Tampa Bay would get in. But if the Falcons win, Carolina Panthers get in. Even though they lost that Saturday, if the Falcons win, they're in. And that's exactly what happened. The Atlanta Falcons won that game 19-17. It was a really close contest too. Kirk Cousins and Tyler Shaw played okay in this game, but I think the defense has really stepped up. It was pride over there with the New Orleans Saints. They didn't want them to win that game, and they played like it. But at the end of the day, I felt like the talent of Atlanta was better over there in the end. And the 1917 result, actually having Carolina Panthers going into the playoffs right now. I want to move on and I want to talk about the Packers Vikings game. The Packers didn't have none to play for. And they rest their players. That final score ended up being 16-3. Jaguars game versus the Titans was what I thought it'd be, 41-7. And then the Cardinals and Rams game, that final result was 37-20. And the Chargers had Trey Lance playing, so that speaks volumes against the Denver Broncos, who had most of their starters playing because they wanted that number one seed. And that final result was 19-3. And the Broncos beat the Chargers. Chiefs and Raiders game was one that I didn't really pay attention to, but the final score was 14-12. The Commanders ended up beating the Eagles. They were resting players in this game. I felt like that was the best thing to do from Coach Nick Sirianni. And when he rest players, it ended up Josh Johnson ended up getting the win, and that final score was 24-17. Like I said, it didn't. It did matter because if the Eagles would have won that game, they would have been the number 2 seed. But since the Eagles lost, and even though the Bears lost, overall, the Bears beat them on Black Friday, so they got that number 2 seed. Jets and Bills game, it speak volumes. That final score was 35-8. And the end of this season was really crazy for me because this is the first time that I've ever seen a defensive minded coach like Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets having the whole season without one player getting an interception. The game between the Ravens and the Steelers was everything I thought it'd be. It was very spectacular. It went down to the very end. Sad part was, people gonna blame Lamar. They're gonna throw, shade on him and say he can't win the big one. But when you have a team game and you got to put yourself in this situation to win games, it's pretty tough because you had the one where, just not so long ago with Mark Andrews missed the pass and he was wide open. And in this case, now this year, 2026, this game was determined because of the fact that you have a kicker who didn't make the last points at the end of the game. Lamar Jackson played pretty good enough for them to win. 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, he had a pick on the day. And Rodgers had 294 yards in the score. Derrick Henry had 126 yards on 20 carries. And Jalen Warren had 14 carries for 60 yards. Pretty good defense on this case as well. Zay Flowers, man, he had 4 receptions, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Some of the most spectacular touchdowns I've ever seen. It was some magic that Lamar Jackson had. Some of them scrambles when I thought he didn't have no plays and throwing it to the wide open Zay Flowers to get those scores was pretty impressive. Kenneth Gainswell had 8 receptions for 64 yards. Their gadget back. But like I said, it came down to the very last end of the game. And, you had a rookie kicker after getting rid of Justin Tucker with some of the issues he had with the massage parlor and some of the things that we heard in the rumors from last season. They decided to let's move on from him. We don't want those distractions. But at the same time, unfortunately, I would have took those distractions because, if Justin Tucker was in the game and he was kicking that last field goal, that it was automatic. You didn't know that with this rookie. And the crazy part was it wasn't even that far. I'm saying this because I don't kick, so I can't really say that much. But it was a 40-yarder, which I really thought was a chip shot. And I just felt like they just didn't execute. And that happens sometimes. I know it was sad though, and I feel like some of the stuff that I've seen as far as with the kicker too, people shouldn't put that online. They were saying take an injection and kill yourself, and they help his wife cheat on him, and just very disturbing things from fans. Man, yeah, you guys lost, and I feel like you shouldn't have lost that game. But to say that about that dude and harass him and his wife and tell him to kill himself, man, that's just that's crazy work, you guys. We got to do better than that, man. It's just a game. Yes, you guys deserve to win that game, but it just didn't happen that way, unfortunately. I want to give some of the predictions as well, and I want to talk about that. But before I get into the semifinals, when it comes to what's going on in the college football world, I just like to say this, you guys. This is crazy. When I say this, I mean this is really crazy. Look at this. All four coaches in the CFP semifinals were Nick Saban, Bama assistants. The Oregon coach was his assistant, basically his graduate coach assistant. Indiana's coach from 2007 to 2011 was Bama wide receiver coach. And then you have Miami's coach from 2013 to 2016. He was the assistant head coach and offensive line coach. And from 2018 to 2022, Ole Miss coach was Bama's defensive coordinator, inside linebacker coach. I just wanted to put that out there because I thought that that was actually crazy to see that. Because when you see things like this, that just lets you know, win or lose, man. Nick Saban's still the GOAT, and the only person who wasn't was the coach right now, and Caleb DeBoer in Alabama. And unfortunately, you've seen how that went down. But yeah, let me get down to it now and let me talk about what's going on and let me give my predictions for the semifinals right now. I want to move right ahead and talk about this. You got the final four teams. You have number 10 Miami going and playing number 6 Ole Miss. I'm going to give Miami the advantage right now, slightly, even though I still feel like Ole Miss can beat them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do. But I'm going to give Miami a 3-point favorite because of that defense and how it showed up. Carson Beck, sometimes he scares me, and I don't think Trinidad Chambliss, scare me whatsoever when it comes to execution. But if Miami defense can play like it did, I believe they'll advance. And then you have Oregon and Indiana. This one's going to be a close one. I think Indiana will pull it off, but I believe it'll be very close. And I definitely would give them a 3.5 point favor in this one because I believe Oregon is going to make it a contest. I wouldn't be surprised if they won, but I just don't see it because they're too sound. They're too fundamentally sound on offense and defense. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with, number one seed overall, Indiana, and I'll give them that 3-point favor. And then now let me go off into what I want to talk about right now. I want to get off into the NFL and I want to talk about that Black Monday. I definitely want to talk about some of that stuff that happened. And I will give you the wild card predictions as well. But before I do, I just want to talk about some of the things that happened when it came to some of the coaches that was being fired. I want to talk about this because I talked about it some yesterday, giving you a preview of what was going to happen on the show. But I feel like this is something that I wanted to discuss and I wanted to bring out here right now. And I just wanted to talk about this because I thought that it was crazy when this stuff went on yesterday. I feel like with Raheem Morris winning those last four games and beating some really good teams too. I mean, come on now. He beat teams like the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. So I thought that this was kind of crazy for them to let him go. But I feel like they're about to do an overall, cleanup in Atlanta, but off the blank. So that's why I believe they did this. Raheem Morris and GM Terry Fontenot from the Falcons was released. Just in case you didn't hear this, me discussing this yesterday. Kevin Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry from the Browns are dismissed as well. Pete Carroll kind of figured that was coming because he got rid of, his offensive coordinator who was Chip Kelly. And then I heard he was giving the wrong plays to, Geno Smith. And it was just a debacle over there. And it's just really been bad when it comes to the coaches and the coaching carousel when it comes to that team because there's so many coaches that were over there who've been dismissed. And what I've seen too, and I would like to discuss right now, is the fact Las Vegas are spending $50 million right now with the coaches that they already got rid of. Antonio Pierce is making $8 million right now. Josh McDaniels, who's currently back with the New England Patriots as the offensive coordinator, who was the head coach, is making $10 million. John Gruden's still making $10 million. Pete Carroll's making $16 million after they released him. And of course, Chip Kelly is still making $6 million right now. So I wanted to talk about that and just feel like the Raiders have to do better because as far as when it comes to head coaches, I think they had the most coaches in the last, few years. I think they have like 13 coaches, maybe 14 coaches that they had, within a 5-year span or something like that. But it's been pretty bad, from the regular coaches, and then you had the other coaches who were basically interim coaches that they had. That's why I think within that 5-6 year span they had so many head coaches, and that's a shame. And then Jonathan Gannon from the Arizona Cardinals. And what I look at is when you see this, I just thought that it was crazy that like some of the coaches for sure. I feel like Raheem Morris was the one that was most surprising because they were 8-9 and that division was really bad. I think what hurt them was the New York Jets game when they lost that game. I think that's when they started giving up hope with Raheem Morris. And then, he didn't really have a good, respectable record in the last two seasons. It's a lot of expectation from this team. They got some really good draft picks. They got the two ends in the draft that they feel like they think highly of. They got really good wide receiver in Drake London. They got Tyler Algier as the running back, and then Bijan Robinson. Like I said, they have so much talent over there that they figured that they should be playing and doing better than this right now. And since that didn't happen, I feel like they're going to move on and do a new haul off. They're talking about a new CEO, general manager, head coach. So they're just trying to clean up everything right now. And I feel like Arthur Blank had his right to do that. He gave them 2 years. I still don't feel like it was enough, but still, I want to see where Raheem Morris end up at now because now he's getting opportunities as a head coach or possibly a defensive coordinator. I already heard about Cliff Kingsbury. Now he's basically decided to part ways with the Commanders organization, and he's about to go out and try to see if he can get him another job as far as a head coach, possibly offensive coordinator. And I will keep you guys posted on that. I want to talk about what's going to go on in the NFC wild card and give my predictions on that as well before I exit the show today. And when it comes to the wild card round, I want to start off by saying you have the Rams versus the Panthers. I have the Rams, and I have them as a 10-point favorite. No disrespect to the Carolina Panthers because they beat the Rams before. The defense played good, and surprisingly enough, Bryce Young played good enough for them to win that game. I don't think that they will let that or allow that to happen again against an 8-9 team. Not this time. Not on their coach's watch. I definitely don't believe that they will let that happen, let alone I don't think Sean McVay or my man's Matthew Stafford is going to let that go down again. Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. I'm going to give the Chicago Bears the advantage at home in Soldier Field. I feel like they didn't go out the way they wanted to in the season, at the end of the season, better yet. And they're going to make an example right now, especially without Micah Parsons' disruptive, attitude hurting them after he tore his ACL this season. That's a huge advantage. You can tell how much of a difference maker Micah Parsons is when he's playing, but when he's not playing, I'm going to give the slight advantage to the Bears with a 1.5-point favor. They have it going to Green Bay, but I don't see that happening at home. You have the Chargers and the New England Patriots. I'm going to give the New England Patriots 3.5-point favor. I think that they'll beat them by more. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers beat them. I just don't see it. I feel like it's too much talent on defense, and Drake May has been playing like an MVP this season. So I'm going to have New England advancing and winning that game. The Buffalo Bills versus the Jaguars. I got the Jaguars. I know they're saying Buffalo by a 1.5. I'm going to give the Jaguars a 3.5-point favor at home. Then you have the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe with all the issues they have, offensively and defensively, even if Trent Williams come back, I just feel like the injuries caught up with the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm going to give this game to the Eagles, and I'm going to give them a 4.5-point favor because all they need to do is just have a Devontae Smith situation where he could step up and have a big game, and then A.J. Brown steps up and have a huge game. If those guys can have a good game, not even that, but if the defense can get them more opportunities to score, and then Saquon Barkley has a good run game, it'll be easily the Philadelphia Eagles advancing. Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe the Texans defense is like stifling right now. But at the same time, I haven't really seen enough of CJ Stroud. They will have to have Nico Collins and a little bit of help to win this game. But still, that being said, I'm going to pick the upset right now, and I'm going to pick Houston beating the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, and I would give them the 3-point favor. I would like to say thank you all for chiming in, for all the people who chime in to the show and, show love to our brands. Like I said, man, it's going to be a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to do. I'm going to get like a new setup too, as far as my podcast studio I'm going to be working on. And I would just like to give a shout out to the Nighthawk Network and all the people who chime in, Felicia, one more time. I would like to say shouts out to the Road to Stardom, ebook as well from the productions, Coach V, Marla Macy, my man's Sean Love as well. Dishing the Tea crew with, Meats, Red, and, Aunt Nikki. And I would like to say thank you for my sister Harriet and all the people like my boy Ruben, my nephew Dino, and my boy Eric Merriweather, the people who chimes in and show love to the show. Man, y'all make this happen, and I appreciate y'all. Without y'all, man, I wouldn't have this show. And thank you for all the people like my cousin Rita, my cousin Leon, people who subscribe to the show and showing love to my brand. I'm working very hard, and I thank God for you guys. And I would like to say too, the 2026 season, man, is looking up for me, and I'm praying that it can even be better this season. And I would like to say thank you guys. And until then, I will be seeing you next week for sure. And don't forget too, we're going to do the Guru Sports Sessions tomorrow as well, and we will have some more things going on for you. And the show that we're going to do, Two Brothers on the Couch, we're going to definitely be giving you some of the sitcoms and some of the things that we like to do. And before I forget you guys, this is the way you can reach me too as well. You can reach me at Hoovy, WHOOVI, on Instagram. I would like to say thank you guys for showing love and supporting my brand and all the brands on the Nighthawk Network as well. The Sports Guru to you, where I usually put all my breaking news and everything in sports. I would like to say thank you guys for showing me love when I give breaking news and give reports. And Hugh.Lee6 on TikTok as well, where I've been definitely growing my brand on there as well. And I would like to say I appreciate you all. And until then, I would like to say, like I said once before, we will see you next week, and tune in to the Wednesday show, the Guru Sports Session. Thank you.